Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. It is that time of year, fall, when we start thinking about our food storage and wanting to be sure that we have everything that we need to carry us through the winter and beyond. We often get compliments from viewers of our videos and they'll say something like, "We love your cooking show." And while I'm very grateful that people are liking what it is that we do, when we are called a cooking show, that does not suggest what the larger purpose of what it is that we are all about. We are all about food security over the long term, along with self-reliance and emergency preparedness. So every meal that we share a recipe for isn't just a one and done. It isn't just for a one-night stand, unless you think in terms of, okay, this is a great meal, my family loves it, I'm going to add it to my Leveling Up food storage. And we are focusing this year on level 1, which is the integration of our refrigerator, our freezer, and our pantry. So I need to get the ingredients for this into level 1 so that I can have this every other week for a couple of months. And so that's what we're about. We are about meals that are not one-night stands. Rather, they are those that you can work in to your emergency preparedness, food security part of your emergency preparedness for the long run. Now, about 3 years ago, after many hundreds actually of requests, Pam, please write a book on food storage. Please share with us how you do your food storage. I collaborated with my sister Cindy, who has a great plan for her. She does a year's supply. Many of us do a year's supply. And she, as a graduate of BYU homemaking department years ago, she learned a lot of things that she has put into her food plan. And so she and I put together this book right here. It took us a year to write. It's 244 pages, but it is a plan. Now, what this plan does, the title of the book is A Comfortable Food Security Plan for Uncomfortable Times, How to Build 2 Weeks of Meal Plans into a Year's Supply of Food. And so this shoots for a year. But I want to show you one recipe in here, just as an example of what this looks like. So this is puffy oven pancakes. A little description, and then here are the ingredients. And this is home produced or store-bought. This is the menu, puffy oven pancakes with applesauce. And then over here for suggested method is to tell you how to do it. And then here are all of the ingredients for that meal. And then here is how much you have to buy if you're going to plan ahead for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 12 weeks, 26 weeks, 52 weeks. So this is a half a year, this is a full year. But not very many people can afford to do this whole thing, 2 weeks worth of meals, 3 meals a day, for 52 weeks right off the bat. So that's why we break it into 2-week and 4-week segments. There's a recipe section in the back for all of the recipes that we suggest. And then this is more than a recipe book, because we acknowledge all throughout the book that you may not like some of our recipes. If you like them, great. The tables are already done for you. But this also teaches you a method so that you can substitute in your own favorite family meals and then learn how to block it out in 2-week segments like that until you have a year's supply of ingredients. So I'm going to start stressing that just a little bit more so we can think more long-term than a one-night stand meal. So we have included in our videos many ways to prepare meals in terms of cooking them, because it may be that if we have to implement a plan like our book describes, that we may be off grid for a long period of time. And so another thing that our channel teaches is how to prepare these meals off-grid, and we do a variety of things. Very recently, we did a video on how we use our solar power stations, our Bluettis. And one of the ways that we use them is to have them back up on our freezers, so that when we integrate our stuff in our refrigerator and stuff in our freezer and stuff in our pantry, that if the power goes out, we still have a way to support the electrical appliances of the refrigerator and our freezers. That's imperative. And so we also like to really suggest that people think about that and then make a plan and then act on the plan. This is a meal today that we are going to do, and we are going to be introducing something that I have not focused on very much, and that is slow cook meals. Now, slow cook meals are going to be a little bit different than the meals that we've just finished, I think, 10 videos on make and freeze meals, mostly dinner entrees. We eat what we store, and we store what we normally eat. Recipes that are familiar to us that our family likes. So the way with slow cookers is the very same as the way with keeping our freezer powered. We have a Bluetti that runs my slow cooker. And if that Bluetti is charged full, it will run this on either high or low for 6 to 8 hours. I rarely make a meal that will serve Jim and me just one time, a one-night stand meal. Rather, I'll do a full recipe of things and then divide it up and either freeze it, or in this case, today we're going to be doing slow cooker French onion soup. Now, it's going to make enough for 2 meals for Jim and me. So we'll have that for our supper tonight, and then I will refrigerate the soup, and it will last for up to a week. So I'm going to get this started, and then we're going to talk about what we might need to do to work this into our meal plan for level 1, for leveling up our food storage and working toward having a year's supply of food. All right, so the recipe that we're going to be using is from Southern Living, the Southern Living magazine. I tend to like their recipes very much. They usually include ingredients that really make the flavors pop. And this French onion soup is no different. And it's just a little bit fancy, and in rough times, in uncertain times, having the supplies on hand to be able to do something just a little bit extra nice would give us a lift at a time that might otherwise be just a little, it might be a challenging time, and we would appreciate having a lift. Now, I have heated mine on high, and now this is what I'm going to put in. 1/4 of a cup of unsalted butter. This is real butter. So we will melt this butter while we talk about the other ingredients. All right, so in order to have a 60-day supply, which is what we are striving for our level 1 food storage, 60 days supply. So that would be 2 months. And our book right here, remember, in some of its recipes gives instructions for 4 weeks. So if we're talking about 4 weeks, which is, almost 60 days, 4 weeks twice, so 8 weeks. So we're talking about meals for 8 weeks. Then I'm going to be multiplying out, and I need to have things on hand that I can use without counting on running to the store. And so this calls for onions. I have 2.5 pounds of onions here, which is about 8 cups. And they're sliced and ready to go. And these are sweet onions. So these are sliced. Now, how could we have these on our shelf? Well, we can either grow onions and then store them. We can buy onions at our restaurant store. Not too long ago when we were there, a 50-pound bag of onions was $15. And so we could bring home a bag of those onions, and if they're sweet onions, which is what we prefer anyway, we could find a cool and dark place to store those onions, or we could dehydrate them or freeze dry them and then rehydrate them and do what we're going to do, which is to caramelize them. Now, as I was really thinking through this recipe, the first step, the first 6 hours of this recipe is going to be caramelizing these onions. And it's going to be easier than standing over the stove for 45 minutes and doing it, stirring it and watching very carefully. Doing it in your slow cooker takes all of that out of it you can do your other chores and whatever you need to do. You come and stir it one time during the 6 hours, according to the recipe, although we'll be watching it a little closer than that. And so that's a number of ways to do the onions. I was also thinking, what if I did a great big bag of onions, if we bought a big bag of onions, and then I sliced them and caramelized them, and then I either freeze-dried them or dehydrated them and had them ready to go. Boom! What a great thing that would be. So I think we're going to do a video on that coming up here pretty soon. Then there is salt and pepper and sugar, which are staples that we have. And then there are fresh sprigs of thyme. Now this is fall. This is from my herb garden, and my thyme is it is showing that it has weathered. And so keeping a good herb garden right outside your kitchen as much as possible is going to really help in trying times as well. And in thinking about videos for this coming spring, I think I want to do a kitchen herb garden right outside if I can get it to grow. So we may do that as a video too coming up this spring. Then it calls for beef broth. So we can either can beef broth, we can buy canned beef broth from the store and keep it on our shelves. It will last easily for a year. Or we can use bouillon cubes, and those will last even longer. And I'm going to use bouillon cubes for this one. And then it calls for a baguette of bread. Now with a baguette, if the stores, if commercial bakeries are all shut down and we can't get anything from the store, we may have to learn how to make bread ourselves. Well, we can do that. We can make bread that would work just fine in a French onion soup. And then there is the cheese. Now, most French onion soup recipe calls for Gruyere cheese. So this is a little tiny slab of Gruyere cheese, $11. I bought this just for this video, and I didn't want more than this because of the expense. And so I looked up substitutes for Gruyere if you don't have that, and like us, if you choose not to have such an expensive cheese, then Swiss cheese will work, Fontina cheese will work, and those are less expensive. And those we can either keep in our freezer or we can shred and freeze dry, and either one of those ways will do it. So I now have a way that I can prepare these ingredients, keep them on our shelf, and then have French onion soup 26 times a year if I want, which is every other week for a year. So let's see our butter. So the butter is melted, and to that I'm going to add, let me just read it to you so I'm accurate. That was 1/4 cup of butter. This is 1½ teaspoons of sugar, 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. So I'm going to put those in and stir them up with the butter. And then I'm going to put the onions in. And I'm going to just coat the onions with that mixture. Okay, that's about as good as we're going to get, I think. Put the lid on. Oh, no, not quite. So I've got 6 sprigs of thyme that I'm just going to drop on the top, and 1 bay leaf. And it says to just drop them on the top. So that's what we're going to do. According to the recipe, now I have never caramelized onions in my slow cooker before. I've done them on the stove top, and it takes time. It takes about an hour to do them, and you have to watch them pretty closely all the time so they don't get heated up too much to the point that they may burn and get crusty. What we want is for the onions to cook slow, long and slow, so that the sugars are released, the obnoxious gases that make me cry every time I cook onions. Jim gave me another trick to try to keep from crying, which was to chew a piece of the onion. It just gave me onion breath, and I still cried. So I don't know. In any case,
I'm staying away from you.
I know it. No kisses for me today, huh, honey?
Not at all. Maybe tomorrow, the day after.
And it's your own fault for telling me that.
Thanks. That's really nice of you. Can't blame you for that, huh?
And so we're going to just leave it like this. It says to stir it only one time. So as the gases are released and the onions get browned and more brown and more brown, as it releases the sugars, those sugars are going to crystallize, caramelize. And so we're going to keep cooking those onions down until they are a very rich, deep brown color, not burned, brown color, and they have just the most wonderful, wonderful flavor, which is the foundation for our French onion soup. So we'll be back in about 3 hours when we do our first stir, and then we'll just take it from there. I have peeked at this a couple of times. Oh my gosh, it's filling the house with the most wonderful smell. A little while ago, we took a load out to the garage of different things. Jim came back in the house and he said, "Is that fantastic smell your onions?" And yes, it was. So yay, I'm glad that things are doing well. So here they are. I have not stirred them yet. You can see that they are browning around the edges. Our bay leaf and our thyme have sort of heated. So now I'm just going to stir. That's what it says to do. These are not browning. I hope they start. There are some along the edges that got browned. Okay, so we have stirred them once, and we've buried the bay leaf and the thyme, and we're going to leave them for another 3 to 4 hours and hope they get caramelized. So we'll see you sometime soon. Well, would you look at these onions? Is this just glorious? So we need to pull out the thyme. And the bay leaf. These are perfectly caramelized, and I didn't have to do a thing. And it was just like the recipe said. Just leave the onions in they've been in now about 6.5 hours. So, and they have caramelized beautifully. So now what we do, we add 5 cups of beef broth. A tablespoon of wine vinegar. And here is our French onion soup. Now we're going to let this heat for another few minutes, and then we will be back to dish it up and finish it off. So we'll be back shortly. Well, we're at the point where we're going to dish it up and float the little baguettes on the top and put the cheese on and then put it under the broiler for the last touch.
Oh, wow. Okay, I wasn't aware that was the last procedure.
It is. So this has been steaming together for about 30 minutes, and it's beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so I have 2 baguettes for each one. And now I'm just going to put cheese on the top.
Looks like good cheese.
Oh, it's wonderful cheese. I snuck a little taste a second ago.
Did you?
Yes.
And you didn't tell me?
Okay, if you can hold the oven door open, I will get this under the broiler. So this took about 2 minutes under the broiler, and that cheese is all bubbly and melted down into the soup and on the top of the bread. And so I'm going to take a little taste, and then Jim will come around and take a little taste. a little bit with the bread and the cheese. Oh, it is fabulous.
Wow, that's nice.
Well, this was a true success. This soup is phenomenal, and I am most definitely going to add it to our one of the meals that we will prepare for by assembling all of the ingredients. Now we have, it looks like a little over a quart left, so that'll give us another meal of this. And so the soup will go into a jar into the refrigerator. The cheese will go into, the leftover cheese will go into a Ziploc baggie in the refrigerator. And then what's left of the baguette, I'm just going to stick in the freezer. So we're set to go for a whole nother meal on this. And my gosh, talk about easy. Once I got over crying from cutting all of the onions, the rest was a breeze. It took about 6.5 hours, well, 7 by the time I did the finish up part. But so little responsibility on my part, and I just went about the rest of my day and let the slow cooker do the work. So this was a phenomenal success. Thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you again very soon for more videos.